On today's show, Dirk Nowitzki inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame. A look back on Dirk's legendary career, what he has meant to the Dallas Mavericks as a franchise, and what he's meant to Dallas as a sports icon across the city. The best moments from his induction speech, as well as greatest moments from his career. It's all coming up right here at Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA, the biggest stories with the local experts. I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of Locked On Rockets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is about to kick off, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to win all season long, because right now, when you bet on a Super Bowl winner, you get bonus bets every single time they win in the regular season. Just pick any team to win the Super Bowl, and you'll get bonus bets for every single victory. Right now, we can take a look at the odds to win Super Bowl 58. The Kansas City Chiefs, the favorites, at plus 600. Philadelphia Eagles right behind them at plus 800. Then rounding out the top five favorites, you got the Buffalo Bills, Cincinnati Bengals, and San Francisco 49ers all at plus 1,000 a piece. You can use your bonus bets on anything from spreads, player props, over-unders, and so much more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and start earning bonus bets with America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Joining us now is the host of Locked On Mavericks, Nick Angstadt. You can track down wherever you listen to your podcasts and on YouTube. Just search Locked On Mavericks. And Nick, we had a stacked 2023 Hall of Fame class. Dirk Nowitzki, part of that group. And when I look back on the 41 hat for all of our YouTube audience watching along with us, look, when I first off, I think back and I have some painful memories of Dirk with the Houston Rockets, but I want to know, what does Dirk mean to Dallas? How do you even begin to describe what his career meant to the city?
You can't. He's the most influential, best athlete we've ever had in the city, in a city that has the Dallas Cowboys, that has the Rangers that have been in the World Series, that have, FC Dallas, that have the Wings, that have a bunch of, college teams as well. He's the most influential, best athlete they've ever had. And he backed it up on and off the court. He continues to be like Dallas's favorite son. Still lives here, still does great things in the community, has his Dirk Nowitzki, foundation, working with the Heroes Foundation here, doing a lot of things. He had, just an incredible impact, and still continues to have an incredible impact on this city. And, what he means to individual people, what he means to me, myself, he was a guy that, as like a taller white kid growing up, like looking up to a Dirk that he could do anything on the court, and it made you believe that you could do anything and that you could come from nowhere, basically. He was the 9th pick. He got traded. Nobody really knew what to expect from him to come into the NBA. And, if he came into the NBA at a different era or with a different coach, that he came into the NBA with the Dallas Mavericks with Donnie Nelson, or with Nelly, with Don Nelson, his dad. He came in with him and he saw the game differently. Dirk talked about him in his speech that, he saw the game differently and didn't make him put on 30, 40 pounds and become a post guy. And he let him do his stuff outside and to, take jumpers and to have the ball in his hands. And that just revolutionized the game so much that not only to Dallas, but to the NBA. Ahmad Rashad, when he introduced him in the Hall of Fame, said, imitation is the highest form of flattery. How many players out there? Every good player in the league right now has the Dirk shot, has the one-legged fade, has, the things that he does. And you see players all the time now. You see Larry Markkanen, Giannis, some of these, bigs that have ball handling skills. It's because Dirk paved the way for all of that.
What's really crazy to think about is I'm actually going to pose a question to you here, Nick. Do you know how many players in NBA history have only played for one organization their entire career?
I don't know how many. I know Dirk's the only one to do it for 21 years, because
he is the only one.
Only happens to make it 21 years, but
for sure. So the number's actually quite fitting. It's currently at 41. Now, of those numbers, like 6 of them are currently active players. So we'll see if they
my co-host Isaac hates numerology, and I'm going to bring that up to him like every day if that's true.
There you go. Well, 5 or 6 of those guys are currently still active players. So we'll, TBD on whether or not they finish with their respective teams. Damian Lillard is one of them. So there we go. Tune into Locked On Blazers and Locked On Heat. So unfortunately, all right. It's just crazy to think about like the impact that he's had, and to do it all with one organization, right? To just be that constant force through so many different eras of Mavericks basketball.
He brought up 4 qualities in his speech. That's kind of what he circled. Like he formatted his speech around last night. Creativity. Talked about that earlier with Don Nelson. He talked about Steve Nash. Competitiveness. He talked about Jason Kidd and Greg Popovich playing against some of these teams. He talked about curiosity. Talked to his kids and pointed to his kids. And as soon as he pointed to his kids and the camera panned over to them, they were looking in all different directions because they don't know how to calculate what Dirk is doing and like what their dad has done. But the other word that he brought up was loyalty. And he mentioned Mark Cuban and he mentioned the organization and just that loyalty meant so much to him as a person that he, took it to basketball. And he knew as soon as he won in 2011, like as soon as they made it over that hump, that he was going to stay with that franchise forever. And the story of him winning that title in 2011 doesn't just come from the singular season of, well, they weren't necessarily expected to win. They were like a 50-something win team. And, there was the Lakers with Kobe and Pau still. There was the Thunder with Harden, Durant, and Westbrook. You had the Heat in their first season of the Heatles with LeBron, Wade, and Bosh. Like, it wasn't just about that. It was that he came kind of out of nowhere in his career, 9th pick, became an all-star type guy, became an all-NBA type guy perennially. Then they made the finals in 2006. It was stolen from them for many different ways. I'm sure Wes, who was on here, would definitely agree with me 100% that it was stolen. He watched the Tim Donaghy documentary. But you have that finals that was, that they did not win. And you come back in 2007, win 67 games. You lose in the first round, with the first number 1 seed to lose to an 8 seed. You lose in the first round. Dirk wins the MVP that year, doesn't even want to take it, didn't even want to accept the MVP. And then leaves the country, goes to Australia, and just like drives around the outback for a while, trying to just like find himself and trying to figure out. I mean, talk about the lowest of the low. You go from obscurity to one of the highest of the highs in the NBA in the finals. Then you go to complete low, one of the lowest moments. And then he's got to ride out a couple more seasons where he's getting older. The team around him is not necessarily getting that much better. They're getting more veterans and acquiring more veterans here and there. You bring in a Jason Kidd, a Tyson Chandler, a Sean Marion, Jason Terry stays around. Like you bring in some of these guys. Rick Carlisle comes into the fold. And then in 2011, you make that run. He does that. It's just such a Hollywood story that they can't write it right now because they're on strike. But if they could write it, then it would be an incredible moment. And to just talk about Dirk, the arc of Dirk, and just on the basketball court even is incredible. And it's the loyalty of it, like all of that plays together to become this awesome story.
And it's so cool being able for him and just kind of witnessing it all, seeing him share that stage with so many other iconic, legendary players that he highlighted and talked about, right? The battles that they'd shared over the course of their years playing alongside each other.
Pau, Tony, D. Wade, I didn't always like you guys. We competed at the highest level, but there was always an appreciation of your guys' greatness. So thank you guys.
And when you identify, right, you talked about the finals against the Heat, right? And then kind of him coming back and be able to get his revenge against the Heatles later on. Like the way that the careers of Dirk and D. Wade are so intertwined is so interesting, right? They had their retirement, their farewell journeys at the same time. They had the awards named after them. Like they got anointed to their final All-Star games together. Like those two are forever intertwined no matter what they do.
Yeah, it's so incredibly annoying. It's so annoying. I think every Mavs fan I've talked to is like, really? He's got to share the stage with Wade. Wade has to be the last guy because I think Dirk's got the better resume, but like Wade had to be the last guy there. So, I mean, it is what it is. And Wade said it in his speech. This weekend for him and Dirk, it was therapy. They put it behind him. Dirk has said countless times over the last couple of weeks in pressers and interviews and things that, he's put it behind him. He competed at the highest level, didn't like the guys, like legitimately didn't like those guys when he played. And now they're adults and they're, it was fascinating to see some of the most fierce competitors. You got, Wade, Dirk, Pau, Popovich even. You've got some of these guys that just no holds bar going at everybody to then just be friends and like, hey, we're on this team together. Wade, I think even called it a team. Like, I'm so glad to be on this team. This is the best team I've ever been part of. Oh my gosh, it was wild to try to imagine them on a team together. But, they're in their next stage of their career. Dirk mentioned several times this whole week that this was the end of this phase of his life. And it is. It's the last thing he's going to do. He's got, he did his final game. He did his jersey retirement. They named a street after him. They did the statue, and now we've got the Hall of Fame. Like, we're running out of things to give to Dirk Nowitzki. We'll come up with something else, I'm sure. A Ring of Honor or something. Cuban will come up with something. Look,
minority ownership of the Mavericks is not too far down the line. It's going to happen at some point.
Cuban always says he's got whatever role he wants in the front, in the organization, wherever he wants. So we'll see him pop up somewhere. But they've done everything. And so now this is the last thing. Like, this is the last time we'll really all get to collectively appreciate Dirk in a way that's, official and notable and lasting.
Well, you already did some shots fired there a moment ago between Dirk and D-Wade.
I got more.
So,
you want some more?
I'm going to tee you up for I want to know. Last thing here, Nick. Dirk is I got to fill in the blank for you. Dirk is the blank best power forward of all time.
One. Absolutely number one.
Ooh.
Tim Duncan's a center. Tim Duncan played center the majority of his career. You take out, all the years without David Robinson, he's playing center on those teams. He played next to Tiago Splitter. Come on. Really? Okay. We're going to push it. Tim Duncan played the 5 to me. I think he's an incredible center. He defended like a 5, and Dirk played the 4. His whole career until like the very end when it became the modern NBA where he just couldn't play and he was too slow to play that position anymore. So he's number one.
There might be some Kevin Garnett fans somewhere or some Giannis fans that are a little bit upset about that answer. So
those Kevin Garnett fans can go watch when Dirk destroyed him in the playoffs.
Ooh.
Go watch that series or watch any of the highlights in that series. Actually, just watch Kevin Garnett talk about it recently. He's talked about Dirk killing him recently. So.
Oh, man. Nick showed up with all of the smoke. For more reflection on Dirk's legendary career, be sure to go check out Locked On Mavericks. Nick, I appreciate you stopping by Locked On NBA with me.
I always have the smoke for Dirk Nowitzki. Always.